Howdy y'all and welcome back. Ruger Vaquero versus Uberti Cattleman. Old model Vaquero versus Taylor's Smoke Wagon to be specific, but I'm trying to do this comparison for anyone who's in the market of picking up a single Action Army clone. So for general purposes, we'll kind of think of this as like a new Vaquero, sort of, and pretty much any of the Italian clones, Uberti, Pieta, Cimarron, Taylor's, Stoger, they're all pretty darn similar with a few exceptions that I will point out as we go into detail. And I do have a final opinion that I will bring to you at the end of this video. We're going to start out by comparing the weights of these two particular models, and then we'll move into the tabletop comparison of the features. That brings us to the weight difference. Again, this is a 5.5 inch barrel versus 4 5/8 inch barrel. This is the old model Vaquero, not the new Vaquero, which is a little slimmer. So these are just, it is what it is. But let's check out the Uberti. And we're coming in at 36 ounces. And the Ruger is coming in at exactly 40 ounces. So, you know, is it that big of a difference? Is it that noticeable? In my hands, not really, barely-ish, kind of. What is more noticeable when handling them is the girth difference of the old model Vaquero. And again, a modern new Vaquero is much more similar, like almost not identical, but a lot closer to the Uberti in size and weight. So this is really more of a comparison just to these two particular models, but worth looking into. All right, so that still photo there was to show you, in all fairness to the old Vaquero here, that once upon a time it had beautiful color case hardening. I wore all that off doing fancy cowboy twirling tricks and stuff, and I've kind of did like a home touch-up job on it, and it's kind of, that's worn off now. So it's not really fair to judge them aesthetically, because this is a 20-some-odd-year-old gun, and this one's brand new, never been fired. So just wanted to throw that out there real quick. Also, if you can hear all of the noise in the background, I apologize. I tried moving inside to film this, and my audio in there came out horrible. I have a big vaulted ceiling in the living room. It just turned out like garbage. So I'm back outside. I'm on about hour 3 now of trying to film this segment, and my neighborhood just will not relent. So I'm trying to press forward and get this done. I apologize if you can hear machinery. I have tree trimmers down the street, yard crews. It's just one of those days. So the show must go on or whatever. So let's jump into moving kind of front to back. I have to point out that this Taylor Smoke Wagon has a widened front sight and widened rear notch. That is not what you get on a standard out-of-the-box Uberti. Like a regular Cattleman will have kind of a pointy, slim blade up here and a little V notch in the back. So this is patterned more after what Ruger does standard. So as far as sights go, points to the Ruger Vaquero and new Vaquero for having a slightly modernized sight picture. It's just, it works a lot better. Otherwise, they're pretty darn similar up front. Little difference in the shape of the ejection rod lever there, but they both work just fine. Neither one is a win. That's kind of a draw there. Same with the cylinder pin and the cross pin there. Very similar in how they work. The frames look pretty similar. The old model Ruger frame is a little beefier. It doesn't really translate on camera, maybe a little bit, but it's definitely beefier. The real difference when we talk about Ruger only loads and how you can shoot higher velocity, higher pressure loads out of an old model Vaquero. The big difference there is going to be the thickness of that cylinder wall. And that, while may not look substantial to you, it is substantial. And turning it kind of over this way, that really shows how much thicker the cylinder is on the old Vaquero. And moving back, you can see a pretty stark difference right here at the hammer to frame interface. Ruger gives you that little cutout deal. Reminds me of like a Wilson Combat rear sight. And as we bring the hammers back, big difference is you've got a hammer spur on the Uberti, keeping, at least visually, it's not actually the same as the old Colts, but it's visually looks more like an old Colt versus the spurless. I catch this in in a bad Western movie. If they're using Ruger Vaqueros, that jumps out at me. It's like, oh God, that's a Vaquero. That's not a Colt. And to me, that's pretty cringe. If you're doing reenacting or something like that, use the Uberti. It's pretty darn noticeable. And then obviously we've got the transfer bar, which is the big difference internally. The internals of these guns are substantially different. And this is one of those points where you've got the transfer bar and then you have a little spring-loaded firing pin button right there. And I'll give you an idea how that works. You can see it jump through right there. And then it bounces back. Versus on the Uberti, it just stays. So very significant difference in the hammers and in the actions of these guns. Okay, when we move into the grip frames, again, this is not your standard Uberti. The Smoke Wagon has a narrowed, a thinner grip, and the navy length grip, which makes it very comparable size-wise to the Vaquero. And this particular Vaquero, these are aftermarket real stag grips, so they're a little thicker than the ones that were on here before. Actually, I haven't had the originals. I had some Altamont grips on here for years, so I haven't had original factory stocks on this for like 12 years or something like that. But the profile is fairly similar. They feel fairly similar in the hands, except for that this one is thicker. And let's cut away and look inside to see the other really significant difference in the engineering going on here. So here's a look at the major difference between a Ruger Vaquero and a Colt or Colt clone is how they're sprung. On the Vaquero, you have a one-piece grip frame and a coil spring that activates the hammer, mainspring. Versus, obviously I have the back strap and grip removed so that you can see the flat spring of the Colt / Uberti, whatever. And that is how that works. So it goes under tension and then it is released. All right, let's talk about loading them. This is one area where these two guns depart quite a bit. Obviously, cylinder is locked. You open the gate. Now the cylinder is open. One thing that's weird is they don't index in such a way that you can just load. So you have to slightly turn it and hold it and then load it. I have never understood why they do that, but that is the case. Then you close it, cylinder locks, and now you're loaded. So that is quite different than the traditional Colt method. Obviously, cylinder is locked. You open the gate, nothing happens. You have to cock the hammer. Now the cylinder is free. It does index on a chamber, and you drop it in like so. Now you have to slightly pull the hammer back, pull the trigger. So this is the correct, Dick Fingers, correct procedure and method. However, the Ruger method, although a little more fiddly, is definitely safer because you do not have to mess with the hammer or the trigger. So, all right, and that brings us to our final significant difference between these two guns, and that's going to be the triggers themselves. Uberti uses the little skinny, kind of slightly offset Colt style trigger, and that does take some getting used to if you're not used to shooting these guns. It's really slim, and this guy currently, after the spring job, I'm thinking maybe 2.5, 3 pounds tops. It's a really, really light trigger and no creep. I mean, it is crisp and clean. Ruger, and this is true for both the old and new model Vaqueros, uses a wide trigger, and this really feels more like guns you're going to be used to handling. So there's something to be said for that you're just going to transition to using this. It's going to feel more like other guns that you have, and there's a value in that, I think. I used to really prefer the Uberti triggers, and then after years of shooting this guy, I've really come to appreciate that feels more like other triggers. Now, because it has the transfer bar, it does present a tiny, right there. I mean, it's not even a millimeter maybe, but it does I mean, it's still really light. Same thing, maybe 3 pounds or something like that. But it's not quite as crisp, but it's pretty close. So, I mean, if you're just trigger snobbing out, maybe, probably. There are gunsmiths who specialize in tuning Ruger Vaqueros, and they will remove the transfer bar. They'll do hammer jobs and all. Same thing for both of these. But getting into all of that is sort of pushing into a different realm that I don't think makes a fair comparison as far as if you're just going to go buy one, take it out to the range and shoot it. These are the significant differences in these two platforms. So, which one is the winner? It's a tough call. I dearly love all of these guns. I'm not super crazy about the bird's heads. I've owned a pair. They're okay. I mean, if you have a set, I'm not knocking them. They're just not my favorite, but I gotta give a slight edge to the Ruger Vaquero. Even though it is not historically quite as accurate, the transfer bar safety, the modern engineering, the single piece grip frame, they're just really like sturdy, robustly built, and they're made in America. And I got to give a slight advantage to that. I love these. They're beautiful. They are a little more delicate. They take a little more finesse. And I mean, like I said, I love them both. So I'm not knocking the Italian guns at all. I think it's a great service that they are providing for us. If you don't have a single action army clone in your collection and you're a true gun nerd, then you probably should get one. That's just my humble opinion. But they are great for new shooters. And once you can master one of these or even get like half-ass decent on it, when you flip back over into shooting your modern guns, you're gonna feel like a Jedi. Like you're gonna feel like Taron Butler or something. Like it's wild how the discipline and the focus that these take is a whole other level. And then when you go back into any kind of modern gun, it's just like, oh, this is so easy. It's like a cheat code. So anyway, that's all I got for today. Until next time, be easy, y'all.